Hey, good morning. What's that? 41 people. It was very easy for me to show up and eat. And I did a little vacuuming afterwards. Won the hearts of my mother-in-law. Really got in there better than my sister-in-law. Yeah. I love that word. I see that. I love. I see that. See that a lot. The more. Yeah. Oh. That's why I don't use big words. Hey, good morning. Do you have anyone online?
Good morning. Are we on? Not. No. No juice. There we go.
There it goes.
Good morning, and thank you for your attendance today. Our elections director, Hannah Duderstadt, I guess she just, we excuse her today. She wasn't feeling well, but her work is all done, and except for our canvassing today. So we'll excuse her and thank McCoy Hawkins, our IT director, for taking care of the technology portion of our meeting. We'll go ahead and begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand, we'll have Supervisor Vice Chairman John Howard give the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Are we still on? It's diminished at least.
Yeah, we're there.
Okay, we are good. Thank you very much. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting and work session held a couple weeks ago, November 7th.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. I'll make that unanimous. Those minutes are approved. Our next item is from our superintendent of schools, Donna McGoy, her request to canvass the school board elections.
Good morning, supervisors and Dustin.
Morning.
At this time on the election years, I come before you to canvass the school board portion only, and later on the agenda you'll be canvassing the general election as a whole. So I have the unusual circumstance of only having had one race, and that was the Pima Unified School District. But in your packet, you have a certification of the all of the boards that will be effectively appointed as if duly elected. And I'm here to say they are correct and true.
Very good. Any questions or discussion?
None here.
Comments?
No.
Very good. And I understand that after we canvass the results, that you will do the swearing in at a later time of your new board members?
Yes, I create and maintain all of the oaths of office. And I put that in there so there'd be no confusion. That's the role of my office. Some boards of supervisors in some counties may have their election director do it, but that's because they have staffs of like a dozen people, so.
Okay.
I do that and maintain all of the records, and of course, make appointments should there be any vacancies.
Okay, that works. Go ahead and, if no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman, I'll move that we approve the request to canvass the results of the 2022 District Governing Board elections.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Supervisor Howard and Vice Chairman Howard and Supervisor Smith. Thank you. I'll make that unanimous, and that's approved.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next, we have our Health Department Director, Brian Douglas, regarding the immunization intergovernmental agreement.
Good morning, everyone. It's requested the board approve a 2-year COVID-19 immunization IGA with the Arizona Department of Health Services. Last September, we did approve an IGA, an immunization services IGA, and after that was passed, there was an audit done on that particular contract, and the conclusion was that they had to separate the COVID-19 immunizations from all other immunizations. And so this is why this IGA was brought forward, that it had to be separated from all other of the immunization programs.
Any questions or comments, discussion?
Brian, the COVID immunizations, they're still going to continue to be given over on Main Street at our health department over there, or are you going to move them back over and be with this one with the flu shots?
As of right now, we're planning to remain on Main Street for the rest of this year, and then I believe that that the need or that our schedules of those that are scheduling will diminish to where we can probably take care of them just at the health department.
Thank you.
At the first of next year.
Thank you.
A couple questions. One, thank you for your work, and thanks for getting us through the COVID, and I'm looking forward to the RSV immunizations when they become available. And when is that typically, if the government decides to fund that, would that typically be an amendment to this, if they decide to fund that program for infants?
I haven't checked into that. At this point, I don't know.
Okay. And then also, I see on page 20, you've got the different contract amounts, personnel, $1.2 million, and COVID, $616,000, and the other programs. But then on page 22, and of course, you know, I'm not expecting you to have a photographic memory, but there are, when it's talking about sub-recipients and pass-through, there are dollar amounts that total amount of federal award committed to the sub-recipient by the pass-through entity, $147 million. Are you familiar with that? Or is that a typo? Could it possibly, is that statewide, or is that just, we're the sub-recipient? I mean, it's got to be,
Right.
I can't comprehend $147 million.
The 147 is, I'm sure it's statewide.
Okay, very good.
Or it could be the state is a subrecipient of a
Okay.
federal.
That's the way I interpret it. It's federal money and the state's the subrecipient.
Okay, very good, understood. I just looking toward our budget this coming year. One other thing, and that is there's money available for I think $125,000 for the improved vaccine cold storage. Do you plan to utilize that money this year, and how?
On the 125,000 on the vaccine cold storage, that's basically freezers, refrigerators, things of that sort. That's actually going to be a very difficult item to a budget, but we'll definitely have to sit down and look into that and to see how we can spend that funding.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other discussion?
No.
I'll entertain a motion. We cannot, I see someone from the audience would like to say something. Procedurally, Dustin, what's your thought on that?
It's up to you, Chairman, if you want to take a question.
I'll kind of take a question from the audience. Go ahead, sir. Yeah, state your name for the record and address.
Okay. I'm Harold Matthews. I live in Pima, Arizona.
Yeah.
491 South, 100 East.
Okay. I do have you down here for a call to the public, but go ahead. Is this regarding the horse show?
No.
Oh, it's regarding this. Okay.
This is, I hadn't planned on talking on this, but the comment come up. I was in the Army veterinary course, assigned at the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. Now, in 1971, the Army came out with a formula that would cure coronavirus. COVID is a spin-off of the coronavirus. They just added substance S to it. Now we got COVID. Now in 1971, they come out with a simple formula that would cure coronavirus, and they put out a memo on it. I have a copy of how to make the cure for coronavirus. And the beautiful thing about it is that any of the future viruses that come down, it will cure any of them. So we don't really have to worry about. They've always stated that they have a new virus coming out that's more deadly than the one. This will also cure that. I don't want to take a lot of time on it, but if you're interested, I have a copy of how to make the cure for coronavirus. I just throw that out for information.
Well, if you would be in touch with Brian, he's with their health department. He also works with an epidemiologist from Morenci, and they would love to see that, I'm sure.
I would love to. I know that the coronavirus has been really, really devastating to this country, and more or less shut the world down. But this can be cured very simply, and cost effective. We're talking about maybe $1 a person.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Matthews, very much. Thanks you for your service.
Okay, Mr. Matthews. Okay, Mr. Matthews, will do.
Okay, we'll go ahead and back to the business item. The approval of the 2-year COVID immunization IGA. I'll entertain a motion if there's no more discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the 2-year COVID-19 immunization IGA with the Arizona Department of Health Services.
And I'll second it.
And I'll make that unanimous. Thank you. That motion passes. Thank you. And carries. Okay, Hannah is not here, but the approval or the presentation of the results of the general election will be presented by our county manager, Dustin Welker, who was present during, I think, just the whole election process. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just want to excuse Hannah as well. She is not feeling well, but I'd be remiss to not say that she did an excellent job with her staff and Wendy John, our recorder, and her staff did excellent job with the election. Just some numbers on, we have 19,487 registered voters. We had 11,006 ballots cast for election day. That's a voter turnout of 56.48%.
Wow.
Of those 11,006 ballots that were cast, 3,572 were cast on election day. 6,140 were early ballots turned in early, and then 1,196 late votes, which are basically your early ballots that are dropped at the on election day at the voting centers, and then 98 provisional ballots. The election day went very smooth. Started about 5 in the morning and finished about 10 o'clock at night. It's a very long day. We definitely have a lot of help from IT and several other departments, highway department, planning and zoning, moving equipment around the day before and the day of, getting all our ballots in. We have excellent ballot workers throughout the county that are very tenured, have a lot of experience, and election day went very smoothly. We really didn't have any hiccups to speak of. No one was turned away at any time, to my knowledge, and everyone that wanted to vote was able to vote. We did have, again, some of those provisionals where maybe their addresses weren't correct, or they tried to register too late, too close to the deadline, or after the deadline. But other than that, again, it was very successful. It went smoothly, and we're very happy to present this canvas to the board and ask that you canvass results of the general election held November 8th, 2022. I guess, but I have some letters, and Chairman, you had mentioned if you'd
sure.
want me to read
just
those.
a couple of statements to the Secretary of State, that'd be great.
The letter that once canvassed that would go to Secretary Hobbs says, I, the undersigned, being the chairman of the Graham County Board of Supervisors, do hereby certify on Monday, 21st, 2022, the Graham County Board of Supervisors did canvass the returns of the November 8th, 2022 general election held in Graham County, Arizona, and do testify the tabulation of votes attached hereto is a true and correct copy of all votes at said election, and witness thereof, the Graham County Board of Supervisors does hereby certify the results of the general election held in the Graham County on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. And then another letter from Hannah Duderstadt, our election director, says, Dear Secretary Hobbs, I, the undersigned, affirm that the information provided on the attached reports are true and accurate to the best of my knowledge. And the last letter in your packet says, Dear Secretary Hobbs, this is again from our elections director. This letter is to confirm that Graham County did not have any participation from the political parties for the hand count of ballots for the November 8, 2022 election. Therefore, in accordance with ARS 16-602, Graham County did not conduct a hand count. If you have any questions, please contact me, Hannah Duderstadt. So those are the 3 letters in your packet, of course followed with all the election results from Graham County for all races.
And for the public, either online or subsequent to this meeting, those results are available through the election director and I believe the recorder's office.
And on our website. They're on our website under the elections department.
Very good. Discussion or comments?
I just want to give a big shout out and appreciation to Hannah and election director and Wendy, all the work they do on that day. Elections they've become quite a ordeal and a job, and Dustin and all the whole county staff as well. It's amazing how easy, or not easy you make it look, but I know the work that goes into it. So I just want to thank you very, very much for all your hard work and what you put into it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'll move that we approve the canvass results of the general election held November 8th.
And I will second it.
I want to make that unanimous, and that motion carries. Thank you very, very much. And thank you, Wendy, in your office. You didn't get mentioned, but your office, and I was really pleased. I think that like 40 or 35 of the 44 people who helped, or maybe there were 50, were trained, and it wasn't just show up the day of the election, but they had received training, and that speaks very well. Thank you. Okay, next item of business is the approval of the holiday schedule. This is our HR Director, Cindy Norris Blake.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So today I come before you to request approval of the 2023 holiday schedule. It's pretty status quo that we come before you each year to have this approved. However, this year we did add an additional column for our law enforcement personnel because there was some confusion during the holidays for their premium pay, which we just adopted that policy a year ago. So even though, for example, this year Christmas falls on a Sunday, but we will recognize it on Monday, but there's law enforcement personnel that will actually be working Christmas Day, and we want to make sure that they're compensated correctly. So this will only affect the Christmas holiday, New Year's, and Veterans Day next year. So I'll entertain any questions.
We've reviewed the document. Thank you very much for putting that together. Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 holiday schedule.
I'll second it.
And I'll make that unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is presented by the County Manager, Dustin Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board knows, we belong to several organizations and associations that benefit the county and the members of Graham County. One of these organizations is called the Coalition of Arizona, New Mexico Counties. And this organization, their goal is to further the stability of economic growth in those counties. Of late, one of the main focuses that they have is dealing with the Mexican gray wolf, and this, of course, goes back many years. The introduction of the gray wolf. Graham County has historically been an advocate for our ranchers and our farmers and our community members to help mitigate the effects of introducing the Mexican gray wolf into our county and try to protect our ranchers from takes from those wolves. Now, what's currently going on is they are in the process of changing some of the rules that are associated with the gray wolf, specifically making it more difficult for a rancher to take a wolf. If there's a wolf that's exceptionally aggressive and shows a behavior that takes a lot of cattle, then there is a process where that wolf can be removed. So this rule change would make that more difficult, and the Coalition of Arizona and New Mexico Counties would like to, as this goes to court, to challenge this rule, process an amicus brief, basically just stating here's our position on this issue. An amicus brief is a friendly way to put it, to voice an opinion. We're not engaging in a lawsuit, but just making our opinion known in the lawsuit case. And to accomplish this, the coalition is asking that each county allocate up to $750 to fund this brief, and that is what we are bringing to you at this time. Chairman David is our liaison on this committee. He attends those meetings as frequently as they have them, and I would say he's more versed in this than I am, so I would defer to you, Chairman, for any more details. But I would just like to finish by stating this is, we have a lot of ranchers in our community. It would be, in my recommendation, beneficial for us to be a part of this. to help support the economics of our ranchers and to make sure they have the stability that they need going forward.
Thank you. I would add, Dustin, that this amicus brief, the total cost was about $8,800. There are 15 counties that have that are going through the same process of having it reviewed by the board. The ranchers would say, why are you giving, why are you supporting the program, or why are you a part of it? Why are you just opposed? And the simple answer is that the Endangered Species Act is a law of the land, and so we are compelled to uphold the law. The Coalition of Arizona New Mexico Counties wants to mitigate some of the consequences and seek payments for the losses both in productivity and the actual wolf kills, and to keep the program from expanding from the stated 350 wolves throughout Arizona, New Mexico, and I believe Mexico, but at least Arizona and New Mexico, and try to keep it from expanding north into above I-40. So this is basically just the funds are to file a brief to say we are this rule, the reintroduction rule, we are opposed to certain elements of it, which would that they want to have adult wolves that have been in pens, in captive pens, released. They just basically want to open the gates and release them all. And of course, these wolves have been habituated to humans, and probably wouldn't be there. So what they're doing is taking the pups that are born in captivity when they're newborns, and actually going and finding a den that's been a wolf that's given birth, and then adding those pups to that litter, and that way the wolves have a better chance of being wild and not habituated to man and animals. So anyway, it's a one-time contribution. It doesn't have it's not anticipated, and certainly hasn't been represented as being one of these things you get drug in, and hundreds of thousands of dollars later you're saying, why did I ever give the $750? So that's the explanation, and I'll thank you for your background on that, Dustin, and I'll entertain any discussion or comments.
Chairman, ECO and AZ New Mexico Counties Coalition has always been really responsible, and I appreciate the way that they don't intend to build a kingdom that we fund with large yearly dues, and they just, if and when they need money, they come back to the counties and ask for it and coalesce and do good work, and so I appreciate that. And with that, I would like to make a motion to support. Let me get back to my agenda. Support the allocation of $750 to assist the funding for the amicus brief by the Coalition of Arizona New Mexico Counties for stable economic growth.
Very good. And up to $750, I would, if you don't mind amending that, because the actual ask was $550, and we were anticipating a couple counties will not opt in. So, but I just kind of put $750, thinking that, and it may be less.
The way that it reads, it says up to $750. So
correct.
I was happy to do that.
Great.
I too support this group so heartily, so I will make a second on that.
Thank you, and I'll make that unanimous. Appreciate that support.
Thank you for serving on that committee too.
You're very welcome. And speaking on serving on committees, that's our next item of business.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Each year, the County Supervisors Association asks each Board of Supervisors to appoint a representative or a liaison to their Legislative Policy Committee. It's a very important position. Once the legislature goes into session in January, it becomes a very full-time job, keeping up with what's going on with the bills, what we're playing defense on, what we're playing offense on. The County Supervisors Association, we have our own agenda that we'll be seeking to get through with the legislative body, but we also have several bills that we watch that can affect the county for good or for bad. So CSA has asked that each county officially appoint a representative to be on the Legislative Policy Committee. These meetings are held every Friday, and every supervisor is invited to attend, but only one supervisor is designated as a voter on this committee. So I know you know that already, but just wanted to lay the groundwork there and invite the board to consider an appointment of one of you to represent Graham County on the Legislative Policy Committee.
Very good, thank you. I would add that as part of a discussion, that Supervisor Smith not only has served as the Legislative Policy Committee member, but he's served very, very well, very astute, and not only that, but I think there's 61 supervisors throughout the state, and he's been elected as second vice president of the County Supervisors Association, which is the small counties nomination. All the small counties, he's their designee, so that he's got great leadership, and this requires extra time. Last year he went to the Capitol several times, maybe many times, to testify with CSA and on issues. So if he is willing, he certainly has my confidence, and I would love to have him continue to serve if he is willing to represent Graham County again.
Along with that, I think Danny's done just an outstanding job. His relationship throughout his whole tenure serving as county supervisor has grown, and he does such an outstanding job down there at the state force. So I agree with you 100%, and I would make a motion that do we need to make a motion on this, Dustin?
Yeah.
Make a motion to appoint Danny Smith if he's willing to serve another term as our LPC.
And I would second that if again, with his approval.
Yep, thank you. Hey, that's really kind. As a basketball coach, I can tell you defense is a team sport, and playing defense is so much a part of the job, especially when the legislature is in session. And this year, we have so many new legislators to get to know. It's going to be a brave new world, and I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy it, and appreciate your guys' support and help. And I know that you guys are on the LPC calls and listen in on those too. And if there's anything I know, I'll always forward it to you guys in advance.
Thank you very much. I guess we've got this motion's been made and seconded. Do you have a vote on it?
Yeah, I'll vote in favor.
Okay.
You guys are voting in favor.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. That motion carries, and you'll notify the CSA that he's our designee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the opportunity to discuss briefly or summarize some of the events that we've participated in the last couple of weeks since our last board meeting. We'll have Dustin Welker. We'll start out with him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just update a few projects we have going on. We have this probation entrance improvement just to the south of us here that's been going very well. They've poured their ADA sidewalk, and on Friday they also completed that asphalt ramp. So what's left is basically some handrails and striping. So we're getting really close on that project. Down in the Gila River on our fire breaks, Hydro Pest Control has begun doing herbicide treatments on those original 10 fire breaks. Our respite center, we've had some progress meeting with the Good Samaritan Home people, and our county attorney, civil county attorney Gene Roof, and I are working on that contract and are meeting tomorrow to review it. So that's kind of what we're waiting on right there, is to get the contract and then bring it to the board. And then the last project, the Ashurst transfer site, we have mounted our electrical panel, our mast, and we're ready to hook up. And co-op was supposed to be out there last week, but they had too many guys hunting. So hopefully this week. Hopefully they all filled their tags and they'll be here this week to build that line and connect to our Ashurst site. So we're hoping to get that done sooner rather than later. And that's my report for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll just go from right to left. I, on November 8th, attended the Graham Greenlee Transportation meetings, and then also Historical Society meeting that night. The Graham Greenlee Transportation is for transit. And then the previous night I was at a city council meeting and went to Benson for Southeastern Arizona Community Action Program and talked about some of their activities in supporting Graham County residents. There was a presentation, several of the board members attended Veterans Day at the college, and then Friday, the parade and Veterans Day activities. I would just like to comment and thank our maintenance and landscaping staff. They used for overflow the courthouse lawn, and it just looked great. No excuses had to be made for our lawn this year, and it was really it's a nice gathering place. It worked out very well. And then the following week we had a little local pension board meeting and talked about a transportation booklet that we're going to present to the legislature for to ask for a couple of Graham County projects and other rural county projects for statewide. Fair Committee met that afternoon on the 14th and had a very productive meeting, reviewed the mostly positives and one or two things we could do better, but it was great participation, and the morale and the energy was great. On the 15th, there was a Valley Telecom luncheon, talked about their broadband expansion, and then traveled with the most of the board to Phoenix for an Eastern Counties organization meeting. We talked about forest restoration and wolf reintroduction mostly, and then we had a county supervisors meeting the next day, and then attended. I didn't have it in me after 2 days in Phoenix to go to Nogales, so I took in a Zoom conference for Southeastern Arizona governments the next day. That's my report.
I'll kind of piggyback off Paul. I attended all the Veterans Day celebrations, and I will have to say that the Veterans Day program for City of Safford that County put on there was amazing. It was very well attended and just keeps continuing to grow. The speakers were amazing. It was just all around a great event. And also at our appreciation luncheon at Valley Telecom, they discussed a little bit about the broadband. Hopefully we can get on board with that this coming year. I attended the Pima Town Council and seen the induction of their new mayor. And on the 16th, I attended the chamber meeting and traveled to Phoenix to the CSA meetings as well. But one thing that really I was really enjoyed attending was the ribbon cutting at EAC of the Mass Science project there. They're doing a radiology academic class now that is going to be amazing. They've actually set up a whole radiology room at the college, and they're to follow up on that, they will have mammograms in the future teaching these students. So EA will offer a full radiology degree for these students. There's 12 in it that'll graduate 2 semesters from now on their initial class. That was really neat. And then on Saturday, I had the opportunity to play in a golf tournament for the Safe House, and just want to say it was so well attended. We raised over $5,000 for the Safe House. Thelma Williams and my wife Jenny put it on, and it was a great event. A lot of money will go to a good cause. And just one other shout out that we got coming up, the Light Parade and Mary Main Street coming up. Light Parade's Black Friday, no, Mary Main Street's Black Friday, and then the Light Parade will be on the 10th. We invite the county. As we all know, we're gonna make another float, and we're gonna repeat our championship, hopefully, so that's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, let me add, there will be snow on Main Street during Mary Main Street. So, hey, I'll just talk about one meeting that I had since our last meeting. It's not anything to do with the county, but on the United Way Board, we a year ago we set up grants in quarters, and it was a noble endeavor to try to weigh like education grants or economic development grants or health grants against each other, and be able to award the best grants, but it really didn't work, and so we threw that out the window on Friday, which I think everyone will be really happy about. And so now we'll just have 4 grant cycles every year, and you can apply within those 4 grant cycles. And what we found was happening was someone would have a great need or a great grant proposal, and then we would just tell them, well, we just hold off 9 months until it's your turn. Or people would apply in the wrong quarter, and we would say no. And then on the other hand, people are being very, very generous, and at Freeport, the Freeport employees, we just got our biannual check from them for $1.9 million. So there is money available, and grant cycles are just 4 times a year instead of having to think, well, when is my turn or when is my quarter? So I wanted to get that out there. I know there's a few here that would be interested in that topic like myself.
Thank you for your service on that and your vision for our community. So reports are done. Next item of business is to pay our bills, and that would be need a motion to approve the demands on the county for payment and handwritten warrants requesting payment.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
And I'll make that unanimous. Next item, our last item of business before call to the public, is a public hearing. We'll have Steve McGoy, our Planning and Zoning Director. This is a hearing regarding the text amendment.
Good morning, gentlemen. This morning we're here for a public hearing on text amendment 22-01. This was applied for by Carolyn Oberholzer. If I say that wrong, I'm sorry. On behalf of Pamela Brooks, who has a greenhouse down in Geronimo, but a text amendment such as this would apply countywide, so it's not directly for that greenhouse only. The text amendment is seeking to revise portions of sections 4.1.2, 4.1.3, 9.2, and 9.4, and changes some of the definition of enclosed area under the marijuana regulations to modify the distance required between marijuana establishments and residentially zoned property and property used for residential purposes. And also to modify how the distance between those is measured. I'm told that the applicant's representative is en route, maybe did not know there was construction between here and there. He has sent a PowerPoint presentation that he wishes to go over with you. While we're waiting on him, I will tell you that the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved a unfavorable recommendation citing this was too broad, too open, and too much. And I think that was the three comments that came out of there. This was just too much to ask. They did vote, like I said, unanimously to send an unfavorable recommendation. And I don't know how you want to do this, or if they're not here, they're not here, but they are en route. If you want to start taking comments from the public on this hearing, or if you want to wait for them to do their presentation, or I don't know how you want to. They were notified, and they, like I say, they indicate they are en route, but I don't know at what point or how far out they are.
Yeah, as chair, if they're not here, then have missed their opportunity to present, unless they show up in the next minute or two. I mean, it's the same rules apply to everyone, and so that's but we, this has been, I've reviewed it when it was presented to the P&Z board, and so I'll go ahead and entertain any discussion on it. I would like to indicate that in visiting with individual members, and I know this is hearsay, but in visiting with individual members, is this the gentleman that we're waiting for?
I think so, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think that you live a charmed life, because we were getting ready to shut the door. So why don't you step up to the, we'll yield the microphone and step up, introduce yourself.
Tim Lasota.
Your PowerPoint is queued up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies for my tardiness. Thank you.
Just arrow down, well,
Okay, thank you.
advance this thing.
Oops. I'll turn off my directions. Okay, so thank you again. I'm Tim Lasota here today in support of this text amendment. I hope the board will pass it, and I'll go over what I think are essentially the reasons why this board should pass this. So let's move on to the next slide. So you can see that I think everyone's kind of familiar with the limitations of the current code, and how we kind of get this situation where we have spot zoning, industrial spot zoning. Now this we think will take care of that. We think this is a much better solution. Essentially this, and obviously we're only talking about enclosed areas and not to exceed 300 acres. But basically what this does is it puts marijuana, we think, in a closer category to where it belongs, which is agricultural, not industrial. So that's essentially what we're asking for with this text amendment. You can see there are some significant, we think, protections that will ensure that this does not, you don't get sort of uses that don't belong next to each other. So so that's the actual language of the ordinance. So this is cultivate, and means pretty much what you think it would mean: grow, process, and processing. And one other thing to remember is when we're talking about these enclosed areas, we're not talking about portable structures such as hoop houses, high tunnels, or cold frames. We're talking about an actual enclosed structure. And I know that's been a concern for some people, so we wanted to make sure that was put in our proposal. Now, in terms of what would be allowed, we're talking about properties 300 acres or less, lot coverage 50%, compliance with all the other requirements, which is obviously standard. But so in terms of the, I'm sorry, I'll skip ahead here, because I know everyone's pretty familiar with the, what our proposed changes are. But So here's what we're gonna end up with when we're done with this. Again, I know I already said this, but the industrial spot zoning, it's been kind of a problem in places that have treated marijuana more like an industrial use. I know we've had that problem in other parts of the state. You know, marijuana in the Phoenix area has kind of been restricted to industrial areas, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. One of the things you get when you're basically trying to allow marijuana uses and you're rezoning for industrial areas is, let's just say the marijuana use fails in that industrial area. You now have an industrial area where all kinds of different things can go. So it's entitled for something that probably it was never intended to have. So in other words, people are going around and saying, well, we gotta get a marijuana use, so please make it industrial. And then we end up with really something that could be a big problem in the future if that particular business fails and then you've got property entitled for industrial. Okay. So we also have some additional essentially protections in here for residential areas, things like that, schools. And the other thing is, so we got 1,000 feet from these schools. We've got residential protections. We've got the clarification on the operating hours. So I think the bottom line here, and my apologies for being late, is we think this text amendment provides a much better framework for marijuana uses. When marijuana first was legalized, I think there were some perceptions about it that have not been borne out completely. I think when it was, and I think this is true in a lot of different places, but I think it's also true here that you had this sort of perception of marijuana, that it's something that obviously was illegal until now. And I think the perception has not met reality in terms of what the introduction of marijuana would do. And I think it's not caused anywhere near the issues that were predicted. I think we had a set of zoning ordinances pretty much statewide that were predicated on this kind of unrealistic view of cannabis. I think as we get more exposure to cannabis, I think a lot of places are adjusting their zoning codes to kind of make it fit a little bit better. We're always obviously trying to do things to improve and do things based on the most recent information available to us. And I think this is exactly in that vein, is we're getting some more information, we're learning a little bit more, and we're finding some of the dangers of spot industrial zoning. And we just think this is a much better approach to this relatively new industry. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I've got several, but I'll yield till any other questions or.
Chairman, I have one.
Sure.
And this is for you, Mr. Lasota. In requiring greenhouses rather than like hoop houses, if I understand it right, would you consider a greenhouse like with the glass, are those movable, or are those kind of part and parcel with the property? Would you consider those personal property or real property at that point?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think that is clearly real property under these circumstances.
Thank you.
I have several questions. I'll start with first. If this amendment is adopted, then it would allow marijuana cultivation in both A zones as well as MX. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's correct.
And what would keep, because much of the county is A zoned, and so what would keep what prevents the proliferation of people going down, and instead of getting tough sheds, they get tough greenhouses, and having 1,000 marijuana cultivations in Graham County? Although people are permitted to grow, I think 6 plants apiece, but I'm talking about a larger how would you envision the county would keep from having a proliferation?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I think there are some restrictions in it is true that this would open up a new zoning category, but I think there are some significant restrictions in there that obviously are gonna take some places and make them off limits, even if it is agriculturally zoned. I also think in terms of the marketplace, I think there are limits to the number of the number of entities that are going to want to operate. You know, there's only so much of a market, and I think we've got some nice protections in here, and I think the market has its own limitations, and I don't think you're going to see a ton of new marijuana grows, but I think you will get out of this industrial spot zoning issue.
Okay, can I ask our P&Z director a couple of questions? And stand by. We're not done, Mr. Melissa.
I won't
thank
go
you.
far.
Okay. We have an application. Well, the Brooks family has the greenhouses that they had used for other purposes in the Geronimo area, and then we have an application pending, I believe, out in the Bonita area for an existing greenhouse. Do you know the sizes of those operations as far as acreage of actually under glass?
I believe the one we were talking about the other day in Bonita is about 10,000 square feet, and the one in Geronimo is slightly larger, but I can't quote you a number. I'm going to say it's 12 to 15,000 square feet.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Lasota, you're back up. One of the things that well, there's several, but one of the things I'm concerned about is there's a provision for outdoor marijuana cultivation, and that is something because of both the odor and it's an attractive nuisance, I think, for people who are bold and think that the cameras and that they can do a Mission Impossible jump in and evade the cameras and have their own little harvest. But I'm really opposed to outdoor cultivation and like to see it limited to greenhouses, enclosed structures. Any comments on that?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so I think when we're talking about Zone A agricultural, I think we are talking about enclosed areas. So, okay. And that's certainly my understanding of the text amendment.
Okay. Well, I've redlined a couple. For purposes of outdoor cultivation, this distance shall be measured. This is item D under 5 or 9-4, and there's for purposes of outdoor marijuana cultivation, and distance shall be measured from the exterior wall. Again, that's E under 5-4. So it does have provisions for outdoor cultivation, and I know there are some counties that do not have outdoor cultivation, and so I'm concerned about that proliferation.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would remind you about the spacing requirements that should mitigate any odors, and obviously odors are something that you can still have odors in a greenhouse. So I have a client with a facility on 43rd and Buckeye, and when you get really close to it, you can smell it even though it's a warehouse. It's not even a greenhouse, it's an actual building, but you have to get really close. So I think the spacing will help mitigate any odor problems from the grows.
And regarding spacing, the text amendment, I'm don't have a tape measure, but with the current Biocan proposal, to purchase greenhouses, there was going to be, or there may be, a Board of Adjustments to discuss the setback. Would this amendment waive that setback requirement, or would the existing greenhouses in Bonita, would they then be in compliance with this text amendment from the setback from the residences?
Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, I think that's a totally separate issue in terms of I think you're talking about ones that actually could open up today, but they need a variance?
Yes.
Okay, I don't think this is gonna have any effect on those. So I think if you're I think the regular code with its requirements, I think would still apply. But Mr. Chairman, I mean, obviously this would create an additional avenue for people to go. So I'm not saying it wouldn't have any effect on those types of things prospectively, if that makes sense.
Okay. Any other discussion, comments?
Chairman, I just wanted to hold out and wait for comments from Carolyn and then Pamela Brooks.
Are they here?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I should have said that. I was a little bit flustered when I first arrived, so I should have said I am representing Pamela Brooks.
Maybe our planning zoning director can talk about the conversations that he's had with Pamela Brooks and Carolyn.
That'd be fine. Thank you, if you feel.
I have a question here. I'm a little confused. The text amendment, if approved, would not nullify the Board of Adjustments need?
It's a good question. And I don't know, do you have, Mr. Lasota, any expertise, or is that something that we could ask one of the other members of the audience who's conversant?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that's really agendized. It's a
Okay.
totally different topic,
good. Okay.
different conversation.
Okay.
I think we need to stay on the text amendment.
Very good.
Okay. Yes, I've just confirmed with planning that this would not affect the MX applications, and if there's a variance there, then that will remain, and this will not affect that. I think that's both of our understanding.
Okay. Let's go into executive session. Let's vote to, well, we've got a call to the public coming up. We've got both Vance Bryce and Heather Dukes regarding the text amendment, and that's under public participation. So I guess let's hear from them on this hearing while we're having the hearing, rather than an under call to the public. And Mr. Matthews will get you under call to the public in just a few minutes. So go ahead. Let's hear from Vance Bryce first of all.
Good morning, Board. I'm Vance Bryce. I'm the Executive Director at the Grand County Chamber of Commerce. And the Grand County Chamber of Commerce Board is in support of this text amendment. We hope that it'll be a very friendly measure to business that want to invest in the county. Mr. Lasota said it really well. You know, the market on cannabis has changed a lot in the past decade. It was illegal, then it was medical, now it's recreational. And changing this code would just be changing with the market. You've seen some really good success up in Snowflake, other places of the state. The House of Representatives have passed a national opening up of being able to use and sell cannabis. And we're hoping that comes